Hello and welcome to another episode of the Africa Within podcast, where we bring you powerful stories, voices and solutions shaping the continent's future. I'm your host, Nontobe Mlambo. Today's episode takes us deep into the heart of rural South Africa, where struggles over land, labor and dignity intersect with the urgent fight against gender-based violence. In today's episode, I speak with Wendy Pekeur, an activist and a co-founder of the Ubuntu Rural Women and Youth Movement. This organization was born out of resistance to evictions on the state-owned farms in Stellenbosch, and now they're a driving force for change across the Western Cape, Northern Cape and the Eastern Cape. Since its founding in 2014, Ubuntu has been amplifying the voices of rural women and youth, building leadership and working tirelessly to close the gap in access to justice and GBV services in some of the country's most underserved communities. From supporting farm workers facing unfair labor practices to empowering fishing communities with knowledge on environmental and climate issues, Ubuntu's work sits at the intersection of land, food, environment, and human rights. In this conversation, we explore what grassroots activism looks like in practice, how communities organize for change, and why centering women's voices is critical to building a more just and equitable society. We begin this conversation with Wendy highlighting some of the common struggles rural women and youth face.
I always say that it is women that bears the brunt of climate change. It is really the women that must tighten their belts, like my colleague Van Ola would love to say. Because if you look at what is the biggest contributors to climate change and carbon emissions and so forth, the energy sector is one of the biggest polluters. And when you look at energy poverty, it's mostly women who face energy poverty in Africa. When it's about generating energy or collecting wood for energy, it is women who collects the wood. When there's no energy and it's dark, it is women that are often assaulted, raped, and go through the violations of their bodies. Murders happen when there's no electricity. So the safety of women is really a big issue, especially in a country like South Africa. And it's women who do the cooking. They are the carers of their families, the nurturers. So they would use the gas, or if there's electricity. Women of the Northern Cape told us that electricity is so expensive, they still use wood. So it's women collecting the wood mostly, making the fire, cooking the food. So women plays a big role when it comes to energy. But in terms of the production of energy and all of that, it's mostly males in these jobs. Women get very little opportunities in these sectors and for work opportunities in these sectors. But they are mostly impacted by climate change. With displacements that's happening, with the flooding we see, with the droughts. Droughts and flooding contribute to food insecurity. Because if there's no crops, there's going to be no food, or there's going to be escalation in food prices. And with women already struggling, like there's lots of single-headed households. In South Africa, there's 15 million people living below the poverty line on less than $1 per day. So women already struggles. And when you look at poverty levels, there's much more women that are poorer than men. Also in terms of unemployment, inequality. So I don't even want to quote all the statistics, but women also in terms of trade injustice and unequal trade, it is women that bears the burden there as well.
Ubuntu works specifically with agricultural, mining and fishing communities. Wendy provides insights into why women in these sectors are particularly vulnerable to gender-based violence and exploitation.
And what I see with the displacements of families when there's flooding and the homes are flooded or the homes are destroyed, and then in South Africa there's something called disaster management, and the municipality comes in. I've saw pictures of like women and children in trees, and the water rising like really, really high, and them dying. And there is such sad stories to see. And then there's no alternative accommodation for them because South Africa has a huge backlog of housing. And then they would be put into big halls or tents, communal living, and that's also unsafe. You know, South Africa has they call us the rape capital. We've got the highest numbers of rape in the world. Very high murder rates, femicide rates, children being abused, sexually assaulted. We have all these issues. So with displacements come a lot of other issues because you're not in the safety of your home anymore. And in many cases we also see, but we already know that in rape cases and this stuff that is sexual assault and all of that, more than 70% of these cases are happening in the home as well. But now you're out of your safe environment into a communal living with lots of other people that has also been displaced. Now that also brings some extra challenges and safety issues.
Ubuntu works across 4 powerful themes: land, food, environment, and GBV. They believe it is important to address these issues in an intersectional manner rather than treating them separately.
And when you look at the food growers, especially when you look at small-scale farming, a lot of women are producing food. They're small-scale farmers. They work the land. Water is an issue. South Africa is a water-scarce country. That's why we're against all this many mining applications, because to mine you need a lot of water. Millions of tons of water you need. For energy you need water. For farming you need water. And our agriculture sector is the biggest user of our fresh water. And so water is a scarce commodity. And so if there's no water to water the crops, I mean, it just brings so many losses. And it further contributes to hunger. And why do women do small-scale farming? And we encourage agroecology and permaculture because it's to grow food in harmony with Mother Nature. No use of pesticides, using planting some flowers in your food garden to attract bees and to attract the bugs that can eat the insects that eat the crops. So we don't need excessive use of pesticides. And in South Africa, we use 59 highly hazardous pesticides that's been banned in Europe. That's been used in the agriculture sector. And often women are exposed in the field, not having protective clothing and working whilst they're spraying pesticides. And that's all the things Ubuntu is taking up to make sure that occupational health and safety laws are abided to on farms, to make sure that women have access to protective clothing when they're exposed to pesticides, or they're not in the vineyard or the orchard or the plantation at all when they spray. So we do a lot of monitoring and we make sure there's compliance, and when there's not, we report it to the Department of Labour. And we hold all of these players accountable.
At one point, Ubuntu launched a campaign demanding that the government and chemical industries be held accountable for the deaths and serious illnesses caused by toxic pesticides used on farms and in consumable goods.
We have a campaign on pesticides. We did it in partnership with other organizations, but we're no longer part of that campaign. So now Ubuntu is going to drive a consumer campaign, and where we bring all the stakeholders on board: the health sector, the labor sector, the trade unions, the health sector, the doctors, the education sector, the researchers, the scientists, because we need the data to show government that the food that we eat is killing people. It's contributing to cancer, to heart diseases, to lung diseases, to many diseases that we currently see in our society. And that adds an extra burden to the health system. And what I found out is that one of the biggest pharmaceutical companies in the world, in Germany, they also own a pharmaceutical company. So first they make you sick with the food, and then they bring the medicine to cure you. So it's all about money and making profit. So Ubuntu is doing a lot of education around pesticides. And now in this year, we're going to expand this campaign. Our education was first just to farm workers, educating them about their right to safety, to health and safety. And then to monitor the usage of pesticides on farms and to report matters and to do referrals and to hold the farmers accountable. And then we started to raise awareness within other sectors. And now we're ready to take this work forward and to launch our consumer campaign.
Ubuntu also provides advice on environmental impact assessment and climate change education because they believe that this type of knowledge is critical for the communities that they serve.
Then in terms of the mines and the, how they kind of overuse the land and the harm to the ecosystems, harms to marine life, harm to people's lives, to livelihoods and all of that. We do a lot of work around it. We do a lot of access to information work. We do a lot of submissions. We engage government. We advocate. We lobby. And we go into the community and we actively on the ground. But we lobby government up to a national level. And then we would go to COP and international conferences to highlight the plights of the people we work with and to build greater solidarity with like-minded organizations in other countries. And we also, I'm a very creative person. I'm a music producer and writer. So I would write songs about the earth, the environment. And then in my community, we have a choir, and we would sing about our land struggles, the songs that I wrote. And then with the women we work with in the West Coast and other areas, we encourage them to write. So beautiful songs came out of that spaces and the writings and poetry and all of that. And then we would create spaces where we sing together and where we share the songs and the poems and all of that, because music and poetry and creative art is important for us in the struggle for women emancipation, in the struggle to fight for Mother Earth, in the struggle for a better future for our children in the generations to come.
Ubuntu describes its work as paralegal support, care work, advocacy and lobbying. Wendy continues to explain how they plan to move forward with paralegal assistance for communities that have experienced evictions or unfair labor practices.
Then we developed a pamphlet on reparations, and this year we're going to take on 2 struggles to take our reparation work forward. And it's for the mines and for big agriculture and all these polluters. You start paying up, to start paying damages to communities whose rights were violated. Damages for the harm done to the environment, to the land, to the soil, to the water sources. And that work we're really going to take forward. On platforms, we already shared about our reparations campaign. We had writings about it. We have a pamphlet about it. We've got banners, t-shirts about a reparation campaign. So the big formal launch will also happen in this year.
Climate gender solutions are becoming increasingly critical in Africa, where the impact of climate change are deeply intertwined with existing social inequalities. Wendy discusses how centering women's knowledge, leadership, and access to resources in Africa can foster more inclusive, adaptive, and resilient societies in the face of a changing climate.
On the question of gender in climate responsive solutions, that is very important, because I really feel that, as women, we're just a different mate to men. And they often accuse us of being emotional. But it's because we care so much. And I can see when women are involved in something, you can see things happen. You can see shifts happen. You can see change happen. So to have gender responsive solutions, that is what's going to get us to reduce our carbon footprint. It's because we're not going to look at profit. It's because we're going to look at the future we would like to see for our children and the generations to come. We would also like to see that the earth, that the earth that gives us life, that gives us water, that gives us food, and so many things, that the earth is protected and taken care of. And it's going to be done in a way where no one is left behind. We launched we called it GIA. It's a grassroots environmental alliance. Just a women alliance. And we feel that this is going to be the movement that's going to ensure this climate justice. It's going to be a movement of women by women, grassroots women, that's going to really take care of the earth and our children and their futures. And there's a very beautiful saying, and I quote, I can't remember the author, but she says, yes, to strong women, may we know them, may we be them, and may we raise them. And maybe I don't even say it in the correct order. And then I hear people say the future is young and the future is female. So we are already training our young women and girl children, who's gonna step in very soon to start taking over from us, and that's gonna lead us towards climate justice. And we're doing the preparatory work, and I still believe that we will see it in our lifetime. But maybe we would not be on the forefront during that time anymore, but we would have laid the foundation for all of that. And we would mentor the young ones stepping in, to whom we're going to hand over the baton.
In conclusion, we discussed some of the most significant challenges that human rights defenders face today in South Africa.
There are many challenges for human rights defenders in South Africa. I mean, we've seen people being killed, 2 women being killed for blowing the whistle, and many others. So there was some safety issues for myself and colleagues and some of the women that we work with. But we had meetings with supporting organizations and other organizations in the environmental sector to speak about it and to put safety measures in place, or to start to think about how are we going to protect ourselves. And there is some of the challenges, and as an organization at the moment we don't have any funding. We work without salaries. We always had low funding, low salaries and so forth. But the work is so much. There's so many people that want us to come to them. We can't yet because we don't have the resources. But the work must continue. And we do the work because it's in our hearts. And as the founder of Ubuntu Rural Women and Youth Movement, I mean, money has never been an issue. But this is now my personal opinion. But when we have money, there's so much we can do. Our impact can be greater. And we can make a difference for more people and so forth. And that's why we launched Friends of Ubuntu yesterday. And we're going to have another launch. And we have a fundraiser in our birthday month, which is April, at the end of the month, a concert with beautiful music and poetry. And we're going to actively start working towards our sustainability. Because there are livelihoods, and we have debts and we have bills to pay and so forth. So money do bring us some comfort. And I trust that our money affairs will be sorted out very, very soon. Yeah, thank you so much.
That was Wendy Pekeur, co-founder of the Ubuntu Rural Women and Youth Movement. The word Ubuntu is a Southern African philosophy that translates to humanity, or I am because we are. It emphasizes that a person's humanity is expressed through their relationship with others. This conversation with Wendy is a reminder that real transformation and Ubuntu often begins at the grassroots level, with communities organizing, resisting, and reimagining their futures. From providing legal support and GBV interventions to advocating for clean water, safer working conditions, and social protection, Ubuntu continues to create a ripple effect across some of South Africa's most marginalized communities. We say thank you to Wendy and her team at Ubuntu for the amazing work that they do, and we wish them all the best for the future. And I would like to thank you for sticking around until the end of this episode. If you found this conversation meaningful, don't forget to share it, subscribe, and be part of a growing community committed to telling Africa's stories. Until next time, thank you for listening. Bye.